This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, April 9th. We have approval of minutes from April 2nd.
Any issues, anyone? Okay.
Appeals, we have requests for waivers of the noise ordinance at Tricentennial Park on August 3rd, British Park on May 5th, South Monterey Street on May 4th, Bienville Square on April 12th, North Monterey Street on May 18th, Doyle Park on April 27th, Greenbrook Court on April 20th, and Boulevard Park South on May 5th.
Any issues, 1, 2, 4, and 5?
No issues.
Okay.
Public hearings. Today is the public hearing to consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 64, Article 5, Section 5 of the Unified Development Code.
Mr. Reynolds?
I was talking, we're going to have this public hearing, but I was talking to Mr. Linder. I can't remember what the reason was, but the one that was published or the one that was modified needs to be tabled, and another one you'll see is on the agenda for this item.
64020 needs to be tabled. That was not published properly. 64027 is basically the identical measure with the publication we believe done properly. So I believe the public hearing, that will be the public hearing for 64-027, not 64-020. So yes, 020 needs to be tabled. The public hearing is on 027.
And if you recall, this was just a small amendment to the UDC to strike the section 6555 D3D, that the council shall approve with conditions, or deny the zoning amendment at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Anyone else? Okay.
Public hearing to rezone property located at 4600 Cypress Business Park Drive from B3 and B5 to B3. Public hearing to consider the application of Sonia Jordan to operate a shuttle service. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Turk Schlesinger will provide updates about Alta Point Health Behavioral Health Crisis Center. And Reggie Hill will speak to public safety, the Civic Center, and zoning and community development. Ordinances held over. 64020, amend the City of Mobile Unified Development Code, Chapter 64, Article 5, Section 5.
And this will be the one that's tabled.
64025, consider an ordinance to amend Article 13, Section 64-13-2 of the Unified Development Code.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I've got a legal issue I need to bring up about this one.
I received a communication from outside counsel for the city yesterday about this, and I don't, this is 64025. We and again, Mr. Woods and I discussed this a little bit earlier, but we're having some controversies between some of the council on this regarding exactly what the 15-day publication period means on these. And if you see what I'm saying, the state law 1152-77 of the Alabama Code requires that you publish the ordinance in full once. 1 week later, you publish a synopsis of the ordinance that refers back to the date of the full publication. And then there's supposed to be 15 days that elapses between that synopsis and passage of the provision. Now, we've got some inconsistencies or some debate in state law about that. The problem is that we're setting our public hearings sometimes less than 15 days prior to, or less than 15 days after the publication of the synopsis. That did occur in this case, and we are looking at some fixes for that. That may or may not be an issue because this council, as you know, does not pass anything that isn't purely by consent until the second read a week later. That would be more than 15 days. That would be passage. That is what the statute says. But again, we have some debate about that, and these have to be strictly complied with, or else any zoning decision the council makes is subject to being struck down. So at the request of Mr. Rossler and in consultation with the city, I think we'd like to table this. at least for the present. Or, well, yeah, well, we can lay it over, but there's still going to have to be, there will still be a publication issue after that. And these are just the technicalities that we're trying to work out on this. But again, this has been an issue several times recently now. We're getting ready to try to call a meeting to address this and get our procedures in place. But there has been a request to table this one or hold it, or we can hold it over. But again, if the problem is found to have occurred, we're going to have to republish anyway.
I'm just totally confused about what
Your
the
mic on,
problem
Ms.
is
River.
on this and why suddenly we're finding these problems.
Some of it comes out of the adoption of the UDC and some issues we're starting to work through on that now. This is one of those cases where you can interpret the law two different ways, but we want to try to maybe answer everybody's concerns and not have the council's decisions be challenged on a legal technicality.
So is this the first one we've come up on that this is,
No, this has happened a couple times recently.
but this is the only one that we are now going to try to table and come back?
No, we tabled the dogwood.
Dogwood,
Yeah,
oh,
dogwood
okay.
has been
Dogwood was the
tabled a
same
couple
thing.
times. And again, that's coming up again, and that shouldn't be an issue now with the way we've put that through. But we're going to keep getting these challenges. And again, there are a couple procedures I think we can put in place that will permanently address this, but we need to have people sit down and get the procedures in place.
So we just basically have to table it, re-advertise, and then come back.
That is the request that has come down from Mr. Rossler in consultation with the city, yes.
Do we have another public hearing or do we just come back?
I think we'd have to set it for a new public hearing and everything, yes.
Everything.
Everything. All right. Anyone else?
I'd like to make a comment.
Mr. Ramos?
This is it's not productive to conduct business this way where, we're finding these issues after things have already appeared on our agenda. This meeting that Mr. Linder's talking about, it's very important that we establish these procedures where we don't have to do this anymore. I mean, could you imagine from the applicant's perspective where they're learning these things and they've been on the hook waiting 60, 90, 120 days, and it's continuing to be pushed? We have got to find a resolution to this. And look, anybody has the right to sue anybody. They can bring a lawsuit and they can challenge or whatever. And, at some point we got to hold our ground and say, this is our procedure and this is what they are, and we have to press forward. So I hope this meeting occurs very soon so we can resolve this once and for all.
Well, we got Dogwood back on, going through the process again. So surely there shouldn't be any extra problems as far as timing other than just to follow suit the same way that Dogwood was tabled and put back on.
I share Mr. Reynolds' frustration with respect to this. It's very disruptive. We have people coming down here for public hearings and matters are set on our agenda and then we don't take it up and it has to be continued and the whole process has to start over again. I think that if there's going to be a meeting where where a final determination is made, I think you ought to go ahead and have the meeting so that we're not, so there's absolutely no chance we can find ourselves in this position again.
Right.
And I agree. Like I said, I'm available at everyone's convenience for that. I'm going to try to get it scheduled this week if we can, or as early as we can get all the people that need to be there.
Because it's almost like any rezoning that comes up, we're going to,
Right. Well, I would appreciate, who's going to take the lead in setting this up? Thank you.
And then, Mr. President.
Yeah.
So just moving forward, I guess the question, this is going to be pretty much applicable to everything that's coming out of a rezoning, I guess, moving forward. So planning commission, and I know Mr. Rossler's on that side of the house. So anything coming out, so how are we, until we get the thing fixed, until we find a resolution, what's our working plan to try to make sure that we don't hold business up for 60, 30, 45, 120 days?
Working with the publications that publish our things, I think we just need to make sure, at least until we get a final administrative fix in on this, we need to make sure that we instruct them that synopsis must be at least 15 days before the public hearing, which would be the first read on the practice we've been doing it as we've done it. Now, again, there's some debate about what all of that means, but nobody will be able to argue if there's been at least 15 days between the synopsis and the public hearing that we hold in front of the council. So if there's been at least 15 days at that point, under everybody's interpretation, we've satisfied the state act.
So I guess the question that is posed at the moment is, what definition of past is are we going to use? Are we going to use past being it was held over automatically, then it kind of falls?
Well, that's the
into
definition we're using now, essentially, because even the way we're doing it, the second read, where the council actually presumably takes it up and votes on it, that will always be 15 days after the synopsis. We have some very good lawyers taking the position that the public hearing, this is based on some case law out there, that the public hearing also has to be at least 15 days out. And some of the case law says hearing. The statute says passage. That's the issue. We've got binding case law that says hearing, and we have a statute that says passage. If we put everything at least 15 days after the synopsis, we've solved both issues. And we don't need, that can be done administratively. That doesn't need council action or anything. We just need to get the procedures in place to make sure we're doing that.
Thanks.
So for the time being, we'll just go to the second read public hearings.
I think for the time being, what we would just do is make sure, however we have to time the publication out, that the public hearing is at least 15 days after the synopsis. So we would still have a second read, and that would be anywhere from 21 to 28 days after the publication, after the synopsis, if you see what I'm saying.
But hold the public hearing on the day of the second reading of the item.
No, I think we need council action to do that. But that'll require an amendment to our procedures. But again, if from the administrative and the clerk's office end, if we just ensure, and some of this, there's been some, it's the press register doesn't exist anymore. They don't publish every day like that used to be. And unfortunately, these procedures kind of were written in a time when there was going to be a daily paper here published every day. That's not the case. But at any event, we're just going to have to make sure, at least until council takes action, and maybe, for example, if we put the public hearing the same date as the second read, we could be doing it exactly the way we've been doing it, and that would solve the publication issue. But as it happens, we've been running the 15th day has been elapsing between the public hearing and final passage.
Yeah, but then we'd have to remember, it seems like to me it's much simpler just to have it show up on the agenda when the public hearing is on the date when the public hearing is called, and then that you're going to meet the time requirements. Even if you take it up that day, even if you move it forward and take it up that day, you still would have met the time requirement.
No, that absolutely solves the issue as well. Yes.
Because otherwise it is way too confusing and trying to time things out correctly. It's
Somebody's got
just,
to remember something.
yeah. So hopefully we don't have too many rezoning things coming up anytime soon, because otherwise we're right back to trying to figure out a timeline.
See, we'll get on top of it as quick as possible. Madam Clerk?
Consent resolutions held over. 40, 125, and 126 are declaring the structures at 237 Abrams Street and 2910 Berkeley Avenue public nuisances and ordering them demolished and secured.
Mr. President.
Mr. Dockbar?
Yeah, Mr. President, Mr. Penn, these are both in your district.
Yeah.
I just want a quick update. 237 Abrams Street, the property owner 6 months ago was here. We held it over so that they could get a permit and begin work. They have.
Okay.
I do recommend that we table it. Just like the 2910 Berkeley Avenue, this was held over for the owner to get a permit and begin work. They do have a permit. They have begun work, and I would like to table this one here now today as well.
Okay, perfect.
37291, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a lounge retail liquor Class 1 license to LA Tavern on Highway 90.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, ma'am.
Resolutions held over. 08302, approved purchase order to Arcadis US for traffic video detection system equipment. 08305, approved purchase.
President,
Yes.
can we go back to 08302? Do we have anybody here from traffic this week? Last week we didn't have anybody. I was just going to ask what that kind of encompasses. I know it says Airport Boulevard, but just wanted to get kind of a quick update on that. I guess not. No, thank you.
08305, approve purchase order to SHI International Corporation for annual renewal of various citywide software subscriptions. 21308, authorized contract with Protect Video for management of technology training and consulting services. 21309, authorized contract with Southern Earth Sciences for groundwater sampling, explosive gas monitoring, and reports for C&D Bates Landfill and Hickory Street Landfill. 6310 and 312 are authorizing settlement agreements and release of claims.
Question.
Mr.
On
Carroll.
Hickory Street landfill, how much longer do we have to monitor those soils? Is it for perpetuity or is it, time span?
Unfortunately, we're most likely going to monitor this in perpetuity. Thank you. Most likely in perpetuity. It's a pre-regulation landfill, but on these, we're not able to stop monitoring after the typical 30 years on anything. It's not just a city, typically on landfills. So bottom line, the answer is in perpetuity.
We're reaching the 30 years, that's why I asked. What about the property next door to it? Have there been any seepage left or right of our property? Oh, this. Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine. I'll ask for part of it.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Ordinances being introduced. 64026, rezone property located at 4600 Cypress Business Park Drive from B3 and B5 to B3. 64027, consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 64, Article 5, Section 5 of the Unified Development Code. Consent resolutions being introduced. 31313, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive a grant to the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing for the fiscal year 2024, promoting access to crisis teams. $400,000, no local match. 31314, authorize the mayor to apply, accept, and receive a grant to the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services for fiscal year 24 micro grant for underserved populations, $175,000. 58315, assess cost for removal of weeds, repeat weeding group 69. 6316, approve award of special bonus to the Parks and Recreation Employee of the Month. 6317, determine an appropriation to Senior Citizen Services, Inc., doing business as Via Health, Fitness, and Enrichment Center, serves a public purpose and approved payment. Resolutions being introduced. 01318, authorize agreement with Goodwin Mills Kaywood for Dolphin Island Parkway TIF District Plan, $29,700.
I'd like to say it's good to see this on the agenda. What this is for the second TIF that the city does have along DIP. I had asked the administration about this. One of the downfalls and that the city had in the past with the first TIF is that we set it and not really used it until like the last minute. And thank God that, the state passed the laws that we was able to extend the TIF. I just don't want the DIP TIF to be just like, like the first one. So this here is to go ahead and have a plan put in place for the citizens can sit down and, with these consultants and just do a map. We always hear without a vision, that, you're a parish. So we don't want this TIF to perish. So we got to have a vision and put it on paper and everything. So it's good to see this forth. And if possible, if it's just 29,000, we've been talking about this TIF for several years. If we can just go ahead and move this forth today, that would be great. If anyone have any objections to it.
01319, authorize agreement with the Alabama Department of Transportation for traffic plan for special events at the University of South Alabama. 08320, approve purchase order to Image Trend for annual renewal of software for Mobile Fire and Rescue Department, $90,375. 08-321, approve purchase order to Insight Public Sector for 50 desktop computers for Mobile Police Department, $29,285.50. 08-322, approve purchase order to Interface Services for replacement flooring for MIT building, $44,092. 08-323, approve purchase order to McConnell Automotive Corporation for wreck repairs to Chevrolet Suburban, $25,559.03. 08-324, approve purchase order to MH3 Printing for printing and mailing of postcards for city's recycling program, $44,390.92.
I have a question.
Vice President.
On the recycling program, is this something new? I see Casey in the back.
It's covered by the grant, the recycling partnership grant. Our requirement was to mail a postcard to every single household in the entire city of Mobile. And that's what that is.
And what is it going to say?
It says, we have recycling centers, there's 3 of them, and here they are, and here are their hours, and go recycle, recycle well, recycle frequently.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's simple, but it's a great thing, and it'll also announce the April 15th ribbon cutting for the 3rd recycling center
Okay.
in Parkway. So,
08-325, approve purchase order to Sansum Equipment Company for replacement of vertical mast for garbage truck, $24,176.36. 08-326, approve purchase order to Shelter Buddy for animal tracking and adoption software for the animal shelter, $19,968.33. 08-327, approve purchase order to Top Notch Tree Care to remove and trim trees on Spring Hill Avenue, $22,000. 08-328, approve purchase order to T.S. Wall and Sons Incorporated for carpeting for Municipal Archives Building, $21,397. 09-329, transfer funds from Capital Project Fire Administration Projects to Grant Project Port Security Grant Program Fund, $41,523. 21-330, authorize contract with Dory's Incorporated doing business as Azalea City Golf Course Grill. 31-331, authorize grant agreement with the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources in support of Go Mesa funding for Shipyard Road, Dog River Acquisition Project, $2,500,000. 37-332, consider the application of Sonia Jordan to operate a shuttle service.
Mr. President.
Mr. Ronald?
So there's quite a few on here that I'd like to request we take by consent. That'd be 01318, 08321, 08322, 08323, 08324, 08325, 08326, 08327, 08328, 09329, and then 31331. As a result of us already, this is just getting our money back on the Go Mesa funding.
No objection.
Any issues, anyone?
Go back through the list again if you would, Ben.
Okay. 01318, 08321, 322, 323, 324, 325, 326, 327, 328, 329, and 31331.
Any issues, anyone? You good, Mr. Carroll? All right, Madam Clerk.
Call for public hearings. 41-333, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 1100 Spring Hill Avenue from R2, B1, and B3 to B3, scheduled for May 7th. 41-334, call for public hearing for the proposed modification of a previously approved plan unit development for property located at 3201 Airport Boulevard and 410 and 450 Bel Air Boulevard, scheduled for May 7th. 41335, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 255, 257, and 259 Dogwood Drive from R1 to B1, scheduled for May, I think that should be
13th, they got moved to the,
14th.
yeah, the 14th.
41336, call for public hearing to consider a modification of a previously approved plan unit development for property located at 3674 and 3680 Dolphin Street, scheduled for May 7th.
Counseling and announcements.
President,
Mr. Penn?
I don't have an announcement, but I do have a question. I know we have, the council have our seal for the city of Mobile, Alabama. I want to ask our attorney, can anyone use our seal, like just for use? Like, they can't use that? Okay. Huh? They're not supposed to. So I want to ask the administration, I know y'all have y'all seal. Can anyone use the, so no one's supposed to use your, I was just get clarity. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Anything from the administration? All right, we'll see each other at 10:30.
Well, I asked their seal.